with 10 minutes left before the store closed. Grace Bennett was ringing up her last customer's purchases at the register when the door opened again and an elderly woman walked in, holding a trembling bag and wearing a faint look of embarrassment. The woman's name was Clara Whitfield, but Grace didn't know that yet. All she knew was that the woman's shoes were wet, her hair was tousled by the wind, and the edges of the small shopping list in her hand were torn from the rain. When Clara approached the counter, her voice was very soft, almost a whisper. "Sweetheart," she said, "I don't think my card is working. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't even know how to use these machines anymore." There were 2 people waiting in line at Grace's register, and the store manager, Richard Cole, was standing a few meters away from the checkout area, watching her every move. The supermarket chain had implemented a new policy in recent months called speed standards. Every customer had to check out in no more than 90 seconds. Otherwise, it would negatively affect the employee's performance evaluation. Richard was the strictest enforcer of this rule because he dreamed of being promoted to regional manager, and for that, he needed those efficiency numbers. Grace swiped the card again. It still didn't work. Clara's hands were trembling slightly. "I'm sorry," the woman said, looking away. "Maybe I should put the items back." But Grace had understood what she saw in the woman's eyes. This wasn't just a card problem. It was the fear of being humiliated in a crowded place. And Grace remembered seeing this very often in her own grandmother during her final years. Her grandmother used to look like that too. The fear of humiliation that comes from no longer being able to manage things on her own. After once handling everything by herself. "It's okay," said Grace, softening her voice. "Sometimes these machines get confused too. Let's try one more time. Don't rush." One of the customers behind them sighed. Richard, meanwhile, started glancing at his watch. The card didn't go through on the 3rd try either. Clara's lips trembled. "I have money," she said, almost as if talking to herself. "I know I have money. My son deposits it into my account every month. I don't understand these things with phones and cards anymore." Grace paused for a moment. Then she pulled her own wallet from under the counter and used her own card to pay for Clara's purchase. $34.48. It was almost everything Grace had left in her wallet that week, but she did it without a second thought. "You didn't have to do that," Clara said, her eyes welling up. "I know, but I want to." "You can pay me back next time," said Grace. Clara's face showed a mix of surprise and gratitude, as if no one had given her something so simple and so selfless in a long time. That's what kindness is sometimes. You don't have to do anything big to be kind. A $34 act of kindness can be priceless to the person on the other side. If you too believe that kindness doesn't wear a uniform and that humanity is still capable of kindness, please like this video. And subscribe to our channel, The After Goodbye. We're a channel that believes kindness will never end, that no goodbye can ever end kindness. And we're doing everything we can to share this with the world. Clara took her bags, walked out slowly without asking Grace her name, saying only, "I'll never forget you, my child." As soon as the woman walked out the door, Richard went over to Grace. "Why did you do that?" he asked. His voice wasn't harsh, but it was cold. "The card didn't work," Grace said. The woman was panicking. The line was getting long. This was the quickest solution. "That's not company policy," Richard said. "You're an employee, not a charity. Finish your shift today, then come to my office." Grace spent the rest of her shift with a feeling weighing on her chest like a stone. She was 26 years old, had been working at this supermarket for 2 years, and was setting aside most of her paycheck for her mother's physical therapy expenses. Her mother had been in need of care ever since suffering a stroke. This job was the only thing keeping her life in balance. It covered her rent, paid for her mother's medication, and every once in a while, very rarely, allowed her to buy something for herself. In the office, Richard was sitting behind his desk waiting with a piece of paper in his hand. "Grace," he said, "I don't want to make this difficult for you either, but you know the rules. You can't mix cash from the register with customer, accounts for personal expenses, not even with the best of intentions. That's a serious violation. That's my own money," said Grace. "I Didn't take anything from the cash. Register. It doesn't matter, said Richard. It sets a precedent. If everyone starts covering the expenses of customers who can't pay tomorrow, this place will stop being a grocery store. Grace wanted to say something, that this wasn't wrong, that what was so wrong about doing a good deed for an elderly woman who couldn't pay, or perhaps a woman who had money but couldn't use it? What had happened to a world where people helped each other? Had we become too harsh? But her throat tightened. Richard handed her the paper. It was her termination notice. I'm sorry, Richard said, though he didn't really seem sorry. But I have to apply the rules the same way for everyone. Grace rode the bus home that night, leaning against the window, her eyes fixed on the city lights. She didn't know what to tell her mother. She didn't know how she'd pay the rent. The only thing she knew was that if she were to relive that same moment in front of that cash register, she'd do the same thing again. She'd never hesitate to help an elderly woman. 3 days later, Grace was sitting in the kitchen of her small apartment looking at job listings when the doorbell rang. Standing at the door was a man wearing a black suit, holding a leather briefcase. Behind him, a dark-colored car was parked on the sidewalk. Grace Bennett? The man asked. Yes, Grace said cautiously. My name is Michael Whitfield, the man said. You're the young lady my mother, Clara, met at the grocery store last week, aren't you? It all came back to Grace in that moment. Elderly Clara, whose card hadn't worked, her trembling hands, and her final words. I'll never forget you, my child. Yes, she said slowly. I went to the grocery store where you met, Michael said, but they told me you'd already left work. I'd stopped by to thank you, but after hearing what your co-workers said, I decided a simple thank you wouldn't be enough. May I come in? He asked. Grace led him into the small living room. Michael was the owner of one of the city's largest retail and logistics companies, and Grace didn't know that yet. At that moment, she was only aware of his expensive watch and his calm yet authoritative demeanor. Michael explained that his mother had been struggling with early-stage memory loss for the past 2 years. Some days she was very lucid, while on others she felt as if she were lost. Years ago, when I was still a child, my mother ran a small grocery store in this city, Michael said. After my father died, she raised us with that store. If it weren't for that store, I wouldn't be here today. Grace's eyes welled up, but she couldn't say anything. That day, Michael continued, when my mom came home, she told me about you. There was a girl who didn't embarrass me, didn't rush me, and looked me straight in the eye, she said. Then she told me about the problem with her card and how you paid for it. I wanted to call and thank you. When I came to the store and heard that your co-workers had fired you because of this incident, I was sad. There was no need, said Grace, her voice trembling. I just did the right thing. I know, said Michael. And that's why I'm here. He placed the file on the table. There's an empty store on the corner of the street where my mom's old shop used to be. It's small but in a good location. I bought it. And I want to turn it into a grocery store in your name. Grace couldn't believe what she was hearing and was in shock. I don't understand, she said. I want you to own your own grocery store, Michael said. Not a loan, not a partnership, an unconditional gift. If there's one thing my mother taught me, it's this. A person's character is revealed when they think no one is watching. In that moment, when you thought no one was watching, you did the right thing. That's something that can't be measured in money, and I don't want to reward it. I want to nurture it. Grace was too stunned to speak. After a moment, she said, I don't know how this is possible. It's such a huge gift. How could I possibly accept it? There might be many elderly people like my mother who don't know how to use their cards and need help, Michael said. Or many women without money who are eagerly waiting for the day my mother can go to Grace's market to teach them how to use their cards. 2 months later, the shutters of a small but cozy shop called Clara's Corner Market opened for the first time. The wooden sign, custom-made by Michael in his workshop, bore a sentence written in his mother's handwriting. No one is alone here. As Grace stood behind the counter on opening day, she saw Clara walk in slowly through the door. The woman was holding a shopping list again, but this time there was pride in her eyes, not fear. "Will my card work this time?" Clara asked, a playful twinkle in her eyes. "Even if it doesn't." "It's no problem," Grace said with a smile. Months later, the downtown store where Richard Cole worked closed down due to widespread criticism of the speed standards policy across the region. Naturally, his promotion was shelved as well. Around that time, he saw the name of a cashier he'd fired for taking more than 90 seconds shining brightly at one of the city's hottest new businesses. Every evening, as she closed the store, Grace would look at the small sign above the door. And every time, she would remember that $34.48 wasn't money that had actually been lost. Sometimes a person's most valuable investment lies in a helping hand extended without expecting anything in return, or in a small act of kindness. If you've listened to the story this far, and if you're one of those who believe in the power of kindness, please don't forget to like our video and subscribe. Share our story with friends who you think need to hear about kindness. Kindness is universal. Enjoy the video!